Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another month of Wander Lane. This month we are working on Sunflower Slope. So we have a few things to talk about in this particular month for this project. A couple of changes, snafus, we'll just call it a couple of different things. So this month we are working on the house block that you see here on the right. And we have two blocks that we are making in this month. So we have a sunflower block and a birdhouse for this month. If you, depending upon your pattern, you will note that under the construction for the King's Crown variation block, it tells you, at least in my pattern, it tells me that I need one of these to make for the full quilt. However, you do not need to make this for the full quilt. Okay, so we do not need to make, let's back this up a second, one of these particular blocks here. However, maybe you're not a big birdhouse fan. Feel free to pull the birdhouse out and drop in the King's Cross or pull out a sunflower. You do have enough fabric in your kit to do King's Crown, okay? Because again, originally in the book patterns and things when we were developing this, it stated to make one. So we have given you the ability to make it. Okay, so it's there. Feel free to substitute out if you would like. Okay, now a couple of things for this month. So let's take a look at camera. All right, let's take a look at building our background or our base for our particular block. Okay, so here is our base of our block. Give me 1 second, I'll zoom out some so that everybody can see. Good morning, how's the weather in Kentucky? There we go. It's chilly here this morning. I still have my coat on, as you can tell. If I could function in gloves, I would probably have gloves on too. So this is our base for embroidery. I will apologize now for my fingernails. Last week was our annual Retreat Yourself weekend. So it was a lot of hard work loading and unloading vehicles and setting up a pop-up shop and things like that, and completely destroyed my fingernails. So I do apologize. We just won't look at those fingers. Our background is cut from 3 fabrics. Okay, this sprinkle fabric is going to be fabric A. The blue whisper weave is going to be fabric B. Oh no, hold on, sorry. This is fabric A, B, and this is C. See, I'm still not fully awake either. Oh, it's gonna be a long week. So fabric A is going to be the blue vine, okay, the 2.5 by 12.5. Fabric B is the 2 by 9.5. That is the whisper weave. And C is going to be the background here for the sprinkle fabric. And then fabrics D are going to be done in the gold whisper weave and the green scalloped floral. Okay, so this goes together just like we've done in the last 5 months. I would sew B and C together, pressed my seam towards the darker one, and then attached A. Then I ironed down my large background hill that is in your laser cut kit, or if you're not using the laser cut kit and using the full kit that you have purchased, follow your pattern sheet here for your background, which is your hill right there. I like to iron that on first, and then I will assemble my checkerboard. So remember, your checkerboard is 2 1.5 by 10-inch strips that you sew together, and then subcut them into 1.5-inch units and then sew them together. So I press my seams open. Okay, so I sew my 2 1.5-inch strips together, press that seam open, subcut into this 1.5-inch unit, 6 of them, and then sew them together alternating color. Press those seams open, and then join it to the bottom of your block. Okay, I press that seam towards the pieced unit because trying to flip up towards the hill is challenging because of the fusible, and the same for trying to press it open. I just press towards the path of least resistance, and that is down towards my checkerboard. I also stitch 1/8 of an inch along this bottom edge to just kind of secure that stitching for, you know, the year while we are working on this, so that they don't start coming apart, because you can't really back stitch because it's a subcut unit. So this is just going to help keep them from pulling apart as we handle and maneuver and work with this particular block. This should be a 12.5-inch square when you are finished. Okay, so now let's take a look at the applique portion of this block. So we're going to travel on over to the ironing board here, and we're going to chat about something. But before we get to the ironing board, now, when I discovered the other day that there was an error another error in our paperwork, and the error listed the incorrect SKU for the fabric. It had the right picture, but the incorrect SKU. And we pay attention to SKUs when we cut these kits. So in your kit, the front of the house, the walkway, and the chimney are cut from the incorrect fabric color. It's the correct pattern, just the incorrect color. So there's nothing wrong with using that particular one. If you would like, you can. If you have a kit here from Material Girls, a pre-cut kit from us, we are going to be getting you a replacement piece of fabric. Okay, it is not going to be laser cut, okay, because that's going to, let me pull this down a little bit here. It won't be laser cut because the lead time for that is too much, and I know that many of you are working on this as you go. This is the color it should be, and this is the color it was cut. And so I wanted you to be able to work on this project. If you are working on this project right now, building this, you let me know, drop me an email if your kit came from me, and I will drop the 5.5 by 9-inch piece of fabric in the mail. If you're not on this block or at this point, I will include this with next month's block. I'll have it labeled for you and we'll include it there so that you can add it to your kit. So when you get to the sunflower slope block, it will be ready. Fortunately, if we want to talk about a good thing, is that the miscut is a very easy shape. It's 3 very easy shapes. So we're not going to be, cutting out a bunch of little tiny flowers. So I figured I would take this as an opportunity for those that don't have a pre-cut kit on how we do the tracing and the cutting. Okay. So I'm going to use a double-sided fusible. Okay. Excuse me. A double-sided fusible. Heat and Bond Light, Steam a Seam. This is a product called Soft Web from OESD. Very lightweight as well. I prefer it to be light in weight versus traditional heat and bond or anything like that, because you are stacking up so many layers on top of each other. It just gets really thick. So we want to start with a lightweight fusible in that pattern, in that aspect. We have a paper side, and then there is a side that contains the fusible. So the paper side is where we're going to be drawing. We're going to take out our pattern piece. And I'm going to locate on the pattern sheet the pieces that we need. Okay, so here's my front porch, my chimney, and I think my sidewalk is, my walkway is right here. Okay, so I'm going to take my fusible. I have it laying on a light box. It does not need to be laying on a light box. I was hoping that maybe it would show up a little better here. A second, I'm gonna get a piece of tape because my fusible wants to curl. And I'm gonna tape this to my sheet. Also going to grab a ruler. Since I have a straight line here, I can see. I don't like to use number 2 pencil. Okay, number 2 pencil, it's going to wear off the more you use it. For the taking it over your iron, your hand dragging across it. So I'm not a big fan of number 2 pencil. A ballpoint pen is just fine. You want something with a very fine tip to it. The other thing that I like to use is a fine tipped Sharpie. Okay, so either one of these items are like what I like to trace my fusibles with. I am going to use a ruler. Okay. You can freehand it. I'm just going to use this since, might as well take advantage of the fact that we have miscut fabrics. And I was just saying to myself, oh, I'm doing such a good job. We've gotten everything correct so far. Open mouth insert foot. Okay, so there's my porch. Here's my chimney. Okay, I'm gonna carefully peel this off. Come over and put this in place. Now, obviously, I will have to freehand the curve. And I apologize if my head's in the way, but Okay. there are the 3 items that I need to put onto the gray fabric. Okay. So I am going to carefully just rough cut the excess fusible from this piece. I do not want to cut on the line yet. I just want to rough cut around, but I don't, why waste fusible if I don't need to? So I still have all of that left. Put that in my bag, and I'll cut a little bit off this side. Okay. Now you want to make sure that you get all those random pieces of fusible off your cutting table, off your ironing board before you do any ironing, because you don't want to accidentally iron this little pieces of stuff to your mat. I'm going to pull out my applique mat so that I know that I am ironing on top of something that is heat resistant, and if fusible sticks, if I iron onto it with some fusible, it'll stick to that and not my wool mat. So I'm going to take, I'm going to cut these apart because these are not going to fit all as one. So I'm going to put the fusible side down to the wrong side of the fabric. Okay. And then I'm just going to take my iron and lightly press over it, kind of holding it in place. Now pay attention to the instructions of your fusible. That's going to tell you how long to press, what temperature your iron needs to be at. All fusibles are different. So you just want to take that into account. I'm gonna get that in place. Okay. Let those cool for a second. And then we're just going to take a pair of scissors and we're going to trim them. You could take a rotary cutter to it as well. I will maybe I'll rotary cut it, but I know I can't rotary cut this, so I'm just going to very carefully. Now, depending upon how thick your line is will depend upon if you cut on the line, to the outside of the line. Ultimately, our shapes aren't like puzzles. They don't need to fit together per se. The other thing is that our pattern pieces are already mirror imaged on that sheet, which means they're already appropriately traced so that when we flip this the other direction, they are traveling in the right direction for us. Let's see. Okay. Get that out of the way. Cut that little bit of fusible off right there. Toss that in my scrap bucket or my scrap bag for this project. If you are working on your wander lane, where are you at? Are you at Liberty Heights? Are you back at the beginning? Just curious how it's going. I'm keeping up in the fact that my items are fused and my blocks are made. I can't say that everything is blanket stitched quite yet. That always seems to be the hardest part for me. Excuse me. And by hardest part, I mean just finding the time to sit down and do it. Not that it's difficult. Okay. Move that out of the way. We're going to go ahead and construct our house. So I'm going to pull my paper up here. Put it underneath that. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Pull that down so that you can see. Okay. All right. Now remembering that we're working from the back forward, which means we are starting on the house. Let me get all my pieces out here. So we're going to start with our house. Let me get a pin. There we go. Okay, there's our house, and then we have our front. Actually, we've got our roofs that have to go on first as they go down behind. So. Get this roof. We have a chimney. Excuse me. And we have the little roof. And if you can hear that buzzing, I do apologize. They apparently have decided that today is going to be the day they're going to clean up leaves. Okay. There's that piece. We will. Our house and our walkway, which I'm actually going to put a little bit underneath of the house. Okay. There is the base of my house. Okay, we have some windows we're going to put on, but before I mess with windows, I am just going to kind of tap everything to kind of just temporarily secure it all together and secure it to the mat so that it is where I want it to be. Excuse me. Right there with you, Miss Pam. Right there with you. I have a tickle in my throat that I cannot get rid of. All right, let's get some windows in place. So, with my windows, I need to clip them apart. Okay, and we're going to get windows in place. Just like we've done windows in other houses. I'm going to kind of move this for a moment so I can take a measurement. So this window is about a 1/2 inch over from the edge, and it's 1/4 of an inch down from the top of the roof. So I'm gonna get him positioned. There is 5/8 between the two windows, and this window is also a 1/2 inch over. So for me, it's more important that the two windows are a 1/2 inch apart, or a 1/2 inch from the edge of the house and from the porch. The space between the windows is not quite as important. I'm going to grab a second ruler here. Just so I can make sure that I'm straight across the top. Okay. Carefully just tap that. And then we have the window on the front porch is about 3/4 of an inch over, and that same 1/4 of an inch down. Let's see, trash. Okay. Good with that one. And then our bottom windows, if we look here, not that ruler. He's also a 1/2 inch, so he's lined up with the above windows, and he's a 1/4 inch down. Well, it's hard to measure 1/4 inch on that ruler because that ruler is a broken ruler. So 1/4 inch down from the top of that chimney. Okay, so I'm gonna line up with the edge of the upper story windows. Here's one, so 1/2 inch over, 1/4 inch down, lined up top. Tack that in place. We'll line up with this window. Okay. It's in place. And we have a front door to put on. It's going to be centered right over top of our walkway. All right, that is our house. So I'm going to tack this bottom just a little bit more so it sticks to the I'm going to peel that up, and we're just going to set that to the side for the moment. I want to go build my birdhouse and my bird. Okay. Let me get everything out of the bag here. So we have obviously the birdhouse pole. Need to make a little trash can for the top of this table for Wander Lane days. Let's get all my pieces out here. We have the top of our, or the base of our birdhouse. And then we have the actual house. And if I look at this, it looks like the house goes down first, and then the base and the roof. So I'm going to put my house here. And I'm going to put my base on. And then I'm going to get my roof. And then we've got a bird. We have two birds. You want the one that is facing to the right. And you want to find the correct matching wing. Okay. The circles on the birdhouse are buttons. Okay, so you'll find your buttons for this, the 3 circles here. You'll find those in your button pack. I'm gonna carefully lift that up and set it to the side. Now we're gonna work on building our sunflowers. Let's get all the good stuff out here. Our sunflowers, we're going to start with the tallest one on the left-hand side. He's the one in the farthest back. Okay. He is a light yellow flower. With an orange sprinkled center. Ultimately, it does not matter which direction this little guy goes. stem to come out between two leaves. Orange center. Tap all that. And then we've got, if I look at this, this is the next flower, but I've got to put these two leaves in place. So let's find the leaves. So that's one. Let me get the other one. Yeah, he is. This one's a cute little birds. And there's leaf 2. Okay. Our next stem and next flower is going to be the gold whisper weave with the orange whisper weave here. Let's okay. And then the middle. I'm going to save the bird that is on this flower. I'm going to save that for once we get him on the page to the background, because he actually has little feet that we want to stitch on there. So we'll leave those to the side. And then we'll do our last flower, which is our last sunflower, which is the light yellow with the orange confetti center. Okay. I know, this is just riveting content, isn't it? Let's watch Amy cut and paste today. Okay, we have those last two leaves down there. And then we'll put it on our background. Okay. Okay, gonna let that sit there for a minute. We're gonna move all of this. We're gonna get our background out. And we're going to look at this. So if we look at this here, as well as looking at the graphic that's in there, the house is definitely more towards the left of the block. Okay, we've got these flowers that need to go over on the right hand side. And it looks like the post of our birdhouse is right there at the seam. So if I were to kind of take this and kind of line that up with the seam, not going to iron it down yet. I know that the birdhouse comes over to almost the first window. Oh, I see something I need to do. Okay. So this piece should be in the seam. Okay, so I'm actually going to unsew that little bit. So let me find my seam ripper, which has to be around here somewhere because I've already used it multiple times today. So I'm gonna just unsew this area where I need to slide my walkway down. Okay. So if I slide my walkway down where I want it, I'll re-sew that when I go to the sewing machine in a little bit. Actually, I don't want to pin it. I'm going to put a clip there just to remind me that it's unsewn. In a minute, I'll clip it. So that's kind of where that is. If I look at the location of the bird, like the top of the birdhouse roof kind of comes into line with that window. So if I want to be particular, I can kind of look at that. He straddles that point. You could, if you need to, maybe move him down a little bit. Change his angle. All right, so I'm good with that. I think I'm going to go ahead and iron that down because none of the flowers go behind the house. So I want to go ahead and get this secured. So I'm going to put my iron down. I'm not going to move the iron for like a count of 5. I don't want to over iron it because then you'll overheat the glue and then the glue won't stick anywhere. Okay, and if I flip it over, I can just give it a little bit more heat directly closest to the glue. Okay, that gives me the front. Now I need to put my flowers on. So we're going to carefully peel these off the mat here. We're going to lay them in place. And it's really your choice. If I look at this piece here, this stem is just about, so if I say this is the seam line, so maybe about 1 1/8 above the seam. So if I take and line up my ruler, I know he needs to shift this direction because that's too close to the edge for me. Okay, that's pretty good right there. Oops. Got a little bit on the roof. This leaf kind of goes over. I've given myself the 1/4 inch seam that I need there. I can shift them a little. Look how adorable that is. I just love applique. I may not love blanket stitching at all, but I just love, it's like cut and paste and coloring. Nothing better than scissors and construction paper. And then I'm going to go ahead, once I'm happy, I'm going to go ahead and set that in place. Woo, I'm warming up now under these lights and with this iron. Breaking a sweat. Okay. There is Sunflower Slope. There's your house block for the month, this month. We're now, oh, I forgot a bird. Hold on a second. Forgot a bird. Let me get him trimmed up. Now, this bird gets some legs stitched, okay, if you want. If you look at the picture, he has some little legs that are appliqued on. He is kind of standing there, looking down or pecking down at this sunflower. You don't want to stitch those little legs. Set them on a flower. It's okay. Want to put your legs on before you applique your bird? Go right ahead. Okay. So you can see here, there are his legs. They're just 2 straight lines that are going to go down. Let's see if I can get this to kind of show. It's pretty much like that. If you have your light box, you can throw your light box underneath and be able to see that. Just want to give them a little bit of an angle. You don't want to be straight. You got to make sure that you keep your 1/4 inch allowance. I just don't like how. I'm not loving that bird. He's buggy. He's bugging me, but. All right, 1 second. Since I moved him again. Just lining it up with the shape underneath. Okay. There we go. I'm just going with it. There it is. Now there is Sunflower Slope. That's there. Okay, and that is the house block. Now that we have our house block complete, our applique adhered down, let's come over and take a look at our pieced blocks for this month. Okay, let me grab a few things. So that we can go over okay. Let's pull up the, let's start with the birdhouse block. Okay. So we're going to make one birdhouse block. Okay. And I just want to go over the fabrics that we are using. So, okay, B, and C. Okay. A, B, and C are the whitish gray whisper weave. This is the background of the block. Okay. Then fabric D is going to be the roof, which is the blue whisper weave. Then we have our house block, which is going to be E, F, G, H. Okay. I is solid black, and J is the browned post. Okay. All right. So let's start putting together a birdhouse block. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my folded corner clipper. I'm going to move all of this out of the way. It is much easier to do her patterns if you do label the numbers that you've cut, because she just references everything by number, by letter, versus trying to do it based on size. And everything is just so close in size for these blocks that it's very easy to make a mistake. So she tells you to place an A square. Okay, so here are our A squares. Right sides together over the D block. Okay, and D is our roof. So we're actually going to put these right sides together in opposite corners. I'm going to draw a line, and then you can stitch on the line and then press the seam. I am going to use my corner clipper. I'm going to place it in the corner. This is the side that we're cutting off. Okay, so I'm going to put my corner clipper there, lining up with that edge. I'm going to cut that. And then I'm going to flip this ruler because this is the corner that I want to cut off. So in the instructions, you can see in figure 6, the direction or the graphic that shows you that those are the two corners that we're doing. Okay, I'm going to set that to the side. We are going to take the H squares and we're going to sew them diagonally in the corners to the I square. Okay, so we actually are going to do two opposite corners at a time, okay, for this project. So I'm going to do this corner and this corner. It's a square and a square block. Okay, so I'm gonna get a bunch of units set, and then we're gonna go sew. Mismatch batch of pins here. Put that in the corner. Okay, we'll sew those two, we'll press out, and then we'll repeat the process with the other two H squares. So that's for the sewing machine. And then the rest of this, we have to, let's see, we can take a C and sew to each side of this unit. Okay, to make our fence post. So I'm going to leave one of those there. Put this right sides together. Okay. All right, we're going to go head over to the sewing machine. Maybe. Let's see. Let's come back here and let's see if Miss Amy can get the camera to cooperate at the machine. It will be one of those days. 1 second. May not cooperate with us. Camera today is, let's see, it's had a better day today. Turn it off for a moment. Okay, while that reboots itself here, we are going to go to the sewing machine. And we're going to sew on the lines that we have cut, okay, so that we can make our fold back corner units, pretty much. Okay. 1 second here. Let's just get rid of that. All right, I'm going to sew real fast. Camera says, I need a break. I've been on since 6 a.m. I was down early this morning filming. So he's like, I need a break. So I'm going through, I'm just sewing 1/4 of an inch away from the edge that I trimmed. I'm chain piecing them. That's why I went ahead and cut a bunch at the same time. I prepped 3 steps versus just doing one and then having to get back up and come back to the machine, come back to the cutting table and then back to the machine. And I'm going to go ahead and all right, one more to sew. Okay. All right, so you can see that we've sewn those two. Our birdhouse post is now there, and our birdhouse roof is now there. So we're going to go to the ironing board. We're going to press the seams away from the blue for the roof. We're going to go towards the corner we're going to go away from the wood post on the bottom, so away from center, and I'm going to go away from center for these particular ones as well. Okay, so let's come on over to the ironing board. Our house out of the way. I'm going to set my seam and then press back, and then I'm going to set my clapper down on top. This clapper is designed to help, one, it gives a little weight, and it's designed to help keep the seam allowance from wanting to pop back up as it cools, so that you'll be left with a really flat seam going in the direction that you want it to go. Okay, so we give it a little heat and then we set it down. There's our fence post. There's our square and square. We're going to take this piece back over to the cutting table, and we're going to attach the next two pieces. Okay. So the next two H pieces are going to go in those opposite two corners. So we're going to lay that down in that corner. And again, I'm going to trim the corner. Okay. And then we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew that. There we go. There we go. Let's get rid of. All right. So we have this. We're going to go press this just like we did the other, so that we have this cute little tiny square in a square block. Don't touch the iron like I just did. Now we need to start assembling. And so what's helpful is that this block 1 should be a 2-inch square when you have all 4 corners put on it. And I'm going to trim this up a little, because right this second he's a little bit bigger than a 2-inch square. Okay. So the next set of instructions tells us that we're going to take an F block and sew to the top of this unit, okay? And we're going to sew G to the bottom of this unit, okay? So we have that. And then we're going to sew E's to both sides. It's going to give us our birdhouse. We're going to put the house on top and the post on bottom. And that is going to be your 6.5-inch square birdhouse block. All right. Oops, sorry. 1 second. We got to do this too. There we go. That will be your 6.5-inch birdhouse block. So you're basically creating a square and a square, bordering the square and a square with the floral print, and then you're bordering that piece with the roof, 2 plain sides, and the post on the bottom. Okay, so that will be your 6.5-inch birdhouse. Let me stack all this up so we can get this out of the way, so we can talk about the sunflower. Okay. Let's clean up this mess. All right, the sunflower block that is in this project here, the sunflower. We are working on the sunflower that is down here in the bottom corner. Okay, so if you wanted, we basically have a green whisper weave, the green plaid, and the orange sprinkle. Just so we can go over what everything is. We have letter A is the small squares of the white background. B is the petal fabric, as well as C. Okay. D is going to be the flower center, well, the outside flower center, as well as E. And then F is the center of this sunflower. Okay. Now, the assembly of this sunflower starts very much like what we just did with the birdhouse. Okay, we have a square in the square that starts here in the center. It is going to be A in 3 corners, and then a D in 1 corner. So it's going to be that same fold back, opposite corners at a time. We're doing this same technique, just using 3 of one fabric and 1 of another. Okay. And you're going to do that 3 times so that we have 3 of those. Okay, we need 3 B squares. And then once we have that together, we're going to be sewing a C strip to the side of an E, okay, and press it. And so you're basically going to be sewing a strip unit. Just like that, if you can envision that. And then we are making half square triangles. Okay. Oh, actually, 1 second. Sorry. This stays solid. Sorry. I can't even read my own alphabet. This is what it's going to look like. So you need to pay attention, not so much when you are making those square and a square units, but when you start to sew this block together, you need to make sure that the green is pointing towards the center. Okay. Because we need that to finish off that border. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I did make the labels. I just printed, I've just found like an alphabet flashcard online. I shrunk it down and printed them because I thought it would be easier in the last few months of doing this, because she doesn't, you know, nothing's in color, because you could do this in multiple colors. Because remember, if you're doing the full conversion, the full quilt, you're going to be making 4 sunflowers, and they're all 4 going to be different colors. Okay. So I thought this would be helpful in knowing what was where when she references everything in letters in the instructions. Okay. You are going to only, if you're making the full quilt, the monthly quilt project, the block of the month project that we're doing, you only need 1 of the sunflowers. If you are doing the full wall hanging, you will need 4 sunflowers, 4 birdhouses, and 4 king's crosses, plus your center unit, your center house. Okay, we do have kits available for full kits available for the wall hanging, as well as what we reference as conversion kits. So if you are part of another store's block of the month series or our block of the month series, and you would prefer to be doing them as a full wall hanging, we actually have a kit that gives you all of the fabrics that you didn't receive in the block of the month, plus the border, binding, and backing for the project. So that's what we reference as conversion kits online. You're converting your block of the month kit to the full wall hanging kit. Okay, so all of that is available up online for you as well. If you are interested, I do believe that we still have kits available for all of it. Okay. And then that is what I have for you this month. And again, if you are working on Sunflower Slope and would like us to immediately ship you the replacement piece of fabric to do your porch, chimney, and sidewalk, please let me know and we will drop that in the mail ASAP. If you are not at the point of putting together your Sunflower Slope block, I will have the replacement fabric in the kit that you will receive next month, which will be, I'm not sure what next month is. I think next month is Schoolhouse Haven, I believe, off the top of my head. But I will have that marked and labeled, and it will be available for pickup when you pick up that blocks, just to keep anybody from not having to make a second trip. But I'll also drop them in the mail for those that are participating from far away. All right, everyone. Well, I hope that this was helpful, and that if you have any questions whatsoever, that you reach out to me here in the comment section below, or drop us an email. Oh, thank you, Miss Wendell. I appreciate it. I'm happy to do it for everybody. Anytime. And again, any questions you have, please feel free to reach out. you can reach me at this email address or through our website as well, and I'll be happy to answer you. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you back here next month for our next house on Wander Lane. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.